Hello world, this is H.L. Quist. I am the Mythbuster. I haven't spoken to you for a long time, but this message I want to get to you today is urgent. Over 250 years ago, one of America's greatest patriots, Thomas Paine, said, "These are the times that try men's souls." Well, that's also appropriate today. And talking about our soul, it's for the fight for America's soul. It is a revolution. That's what's going on Occupy Wall Street and going on in America today. It's not about freedom. It's about a revolution to return to totalitarianism. You know, George Orwell wrote about it in 1948 when he wrote the book 1984. That's what Orwell was a devout socialist, but he feared totalitarianism more, and of course Stalin was the model at that period of time. But let's talk about these issues that are going to try our soul. Let's talk about the European Union first, or as Orwell called it, Europa. The European Union came into existence in January 1999. And Milton Friedman was one of America's great economists and also a visionary, said that the European Union, at the time of their first financial crisis, would fail. Well, that's what we're seeing. And actually those in power, Sarkozy and Merkel, they knew it was going to fail. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But the Greece is the model. It's the microcosm. We know Greece is the birthplace of democracy, but it's also going to be the place where democracies will meet its demise. And that's an interesting study in itself, because it's a microcosm for what's happening in America, what's happening in California. And what it amounted to is that 2,000 years ago, the Greek philosopher Isocrates said that the abuse of freedom will lead to the loss of freedom. And that's what's happened in Greece, is that they had the freedom to vote and vote all these benefits and lifetime occupation and entitlements and so forth. And of course now the country is bankrupt and can't continue to pay them. So you got these whiners that are protesting and what they want everything to continue, but it can't continue. It's going to stop. They're going to fail. But also the leaders, we're talking about all leaders of all these countries, they knew this would fail. So in December 16th, 2010, almost 2 years ago, the leadership in the European Union signed a treaty amongst themselves, committing themselves to the European Stability Mechanism. What a name. Not to be confused with the EFSF that we're talking about now. In fact, that was probably deliberate, is that people wouldn't differentiate between the two. What is this mechanism? What is the ESM? It's a treaty that all these countries have agreed to, that all of Europe, all the people in the Union, will be governed by a board of governors. All right? They'll meet in Luxembourg. In other words, not only have the people in Europe given up their sovereignty and their nationalism and all of that, but now they've given up their complete power in the hands of a few individuals. All right? And this is what Orwell saw. He saw, and he named it Europa. So let's refer to the European Union as Europa, because that is what is going to happen. All right, the second issue that's going to try our souls is the coming Iranian war. As a matter of fact, Joel Skousen says that we are already at war with Iran. Agents of the U.S. and agents of the Israeli agents are already making a cyber attack on the Iranian nuclear facilities. And he says they're also murdering scientists that work at these nuclear facilities. Well, what they're trying to do, according to Skousen, is provoke the Iranians into an action that would precipitate a war. Yeah, presidents, FDR did it with the Japanese. I mean, kings and presidents have been doing that for years. But the Iranians aren't taking the bait. The Iranians have a master plan. Their master plan is to move into Iraq after we leave in December, and also to take over Saudi Arabia. You know, this battle between the Sunnis and the Shiites have been going on for thousands of years. This is the opportunity for the Shiites to take control, in their opinion. But they also have, the Iranians have, an ability to retaliate. They have a missile that I've been told can, when fired, goes 200 and some miles an hour, can be fired and go only a foot off the water, and basically undetected, of course, and hit a ship right at the waterline. Now, they could devastate our fleet in the Persian Gulf. They could also sink tankers and block the Straits of Hormuz. So they have a way to retaliate. We don't know this is going to happen, but we're going to talk about it a little bit and how it's going to affect the oil price. But this is our president's diversion scheme. In other words, the whole age-old philosophy was that the population won't remove a president in a re-election when we're at war. In other words, this was a means to divert attention away from the economy and everything else that's going wrong. When you got a war, you got to focus on that one central bad guy. You know, that's how the politics have been played for centuries. That morphs into another concern of ours, another thing that will try our soul, is the oil crisis that's coming. Whether there's a war or not with Iran. There are several experts like Byron King, who's a geologist trained at Harvard, who says that in an interview with the former Saudi oil minister, that Saudi Arabia and all of the OPEC countries have been overstating their oil reserves by 40%. As a matter of fact, the Ghawar field, the largest oil field in the world, the Saudis are pumping millions and millions of gallons of salt water down into the field to push the oil into pools where they can continue pumping them at the current rate. Well, anytime you have a water flood, that means that the oil field is in its dying days, and that's exactly what's happening in Saudi Arabia and other countries too. And also, Dr. Kent Moore says that in 2008, when oil got down to $40 a barrel, a lot of the companies in the country in Canada and the U.S. and Latin America, they quit pumping oil because they were losing $30, $35 a barrel, and they wanted to hold it back, obviously, for higher prices. Well, he calls it the production deficit bubble that has now progressed through the system, and that we're going to have short supplies. So even if there isn't an Iranian war, we're looking at $150 oil. And if you've noticed, you know, oil has gone from $80 a barrel to $96 a barrel today. And, of course, if the war does develop, we're looking at $250 a barrel oil, $5 and $6 a gallon gasoline. What will this do? This will destroy our economy and the global economy. We're going to have inflation and the prospect of hyperinflation triggered by higher oil prices, food prices, etc. This is what happened in the 70s, and it ruined our economy at that time. Now, the other issue that we are going to deal with, and it's coming within 2 weeks, is the SuperCommittee will fail. You know, on the 23rd of November, we're supposed to get the SuperCommittee to deliver a $2 or $3 or $4 trillion cut in the deficit going forward over the next 10 years. My sources tell me that this is going to fail. We're seeing indications of it now, excuse me. But what this is going to what's going to happen is we're going to see a downgrade in the U.S. debt, which create a heck of a problem for their bond markets. The big issue is, who's going to buy our debt? we're going to be up against that $15 trillion debt limit. There's $3.2 trillion of Treasury debt that has to be rolled over in 2012, plus another $1.5 trillion of new money for next year's deficit. Where's the money going to come from? And we're going to have rising interest rates. That's inevitable. It's unsustainable. We've got an unsustainable situation, and sources say it's deliberate. The president and others want this plan to fail, want the SuperCommittee to fail, because then they can blame it on the other party. No. And of course we have, unfortunately, a president who's a narcissist, who wants to blame everything on someone else. Narcissist isn't responsible for anything. And that's a whole other topic that can be pursued at another time. But also, the president wants to use Medicare, Social Security, and all these issues as a scare tactic to scare seniors. My wife and I get Social Security. The checks are going to continue, but here's what's going to happen. Each check that we receive is going to be worth less, and less, and less. And over a year or 2 or 3 years, it'll become worthless in rapid, accelerated inflation and the potential for hyperinflation. We have, unfortunately, a president that's the Manchurian president. We don't know anything about him, where he came from, where he was educated. There's no track record. Hasn't succeeded at anything. Perfect to use the term Manchurian. This is a book written by Aaron Klein that's now on the market. Anyway, interesting read. But the whole design and the ideology is to destroy capitalism and, of course, the American way of life, and morph into what? Totalitarianism. Because when this whole market breaks down and the debt bubble bursts, everybody will be clamoring for, we need this, we need that, we need food, we need all of these benefits. It's a perfect crisis. Don't let a crisis go to waste. It's a perfect avenue for totalitarianism. It's a return to bondage. And that's what Orwell was all about in 1948. So the question is, folks, where is the hope? How is this all going to turn out? How are we going to survive? Well, the debt bubble will burst. It's now in its last stages. We've reached the point of no return. The merchants of debt have buried us. There's $1 trillion of student debt. Most of it's not going to not be repaid. There's $1 trillion of credit card debt. Most of it will not be repaid. And then, of course, the homeowner debt, we've all experienced that. It's unsustainable, and therefore it cannot be sustained. All right? And that's where we are. But there is hope, because when this whole situation comes down, we're going to talk about recession, even a depression, hyperinflation, the crack-up boom, or whatever. The winners will take control and restore America. Restore America back to what its founding fathers created and wanted forever. But let me take a minute here to use an example, a personal example, how this whole story is unfolding. This involves me personally, not any clients, not any other people. I have a couple accounts with MF Global. A week ago, Monday, those accounts were completely frozen. Couldn't make any trades, couldn't withdraw any money, couldn't transfer it to someone else. Frozen. Today, I have no idea when I'll get the money or if I'll get all of it. There's $600 million that are missing, according to the Wall Street Journal this morning. John Corzine, was the chairman of MF Global, a former Goldman Sachs guy that became the governor of New Jersey, succeeded in bankrupting the state of New Jersey, where all the people's pensions and benefits are now in jeopardy. A large contributor to the president and his campaign. When he was at Goldman Sachs, or Goldman Sachs, as I affectionately refer to them, he was known by the nickname Fuzzy, and it wasn't because he wore a long beard. This is all about corruption. This is all about paying people, favoritism, crony capitalism. That has to end. But look, it's all these people, their money, including myself, have been jeopardized because of the actions of one person and his select group of people. So this is the battle. It's a battle for America's minds. It's a battle for America's soul. It's not only about testing our will and our resolve. It's about the salvation of America. If you haven't already, buy gold bullion. It will be the only currency worth anything. And you might buy some oil because it's going to go up in price dramatically. Sorry to be a bringer, a tider of bad news and delivering bad news to you today, but you need to be prepared. Understand what's going on in the macro picture because it's going to affect all of our lives. This is the Mythbuster, and I'll speak to you again. Bye-bye.